So we should be going now. So welcome to Adam. He's come as the Coelbren expert to explain to you all exactly what the Coelbren alphabet is, how big of a deal it really is to our society, how much of a historical link it has to so many nations around Europe, and possibly the biblical link, which is the most interesting to people. This could be the alphabet that was used around the time that the first Bibles were written down.
Yeah.
So it could have a huge, like, because we know the Bible was supposedly written in Greek originally, yet we've got a lot of links between the Greeks and the British. Apparently, the Greeks got their alphabet from the British, according to, was it Strabo or?
Strabo.
Yeah.
And Marcellinus, Amminus Marcellinus as well, who I'll talk about later as well.
All right, brilliant. So first, you want to just plug yourself, talk about your channel?
Sure. I'm the Great Griff. I'm usually go by that name. Very involved in the Britain's Hidden History project that was led by Ross Broadstock, and I've been interested in this kind of history. It's been about 3 years now. My dad who got into it, and he spent a lot of time doing translations on the stones and things, and we kind of decided that a lot of the kind of things which rest upon these kinds of theories put forward by Wilson and Blackett, that a lot of the disparaging remarks from academia of a guy called Yolo, who is said to have invented the Coelbren alphabet. This Coelbren alphabet is it wasn't first mentioned by Yolo. It was there's many historians who've mentioned a British alphabet prior to Yolo. Julius Caesar and another guy called Amminus Marcellinus, who are two Roman sources stating that the Britons had an alphabet. Julius Caesar, he remarked that the British alphabet was a lot like a Grecian alphabet, which is fine because as Lucas just said, according to Strabo, the Greeks got their letters from the Cumri, but I think the Greeks might have gotten their alphabet from the Phoenicians. We've spent a lot of time looking through stones. I've seen hundreds of stones, different stones, which bear a Latinate and Coelbren intermixture of letters, and we've been trying to substantiate Yolo's claims in order to help make the argument and make the case that actually he's a reliable source. I've done a few videos on this before. I've gone through hundreds of different stones, and I've basically been able to make up the entire script that Yolo Maganog, otherwise known as Edward Williams, has put together to basically show that all of the characters existed. He didn't invent them.
We've had mixtures of reports coming out from history of the British being, like you say, Julius Caesar says we had an alphabet, but he also says that we were barbaric and that we were, they didn't, we didn't know how to talk. We needed them to come over in, what was it, like 600, 700 AD to teach us how to talk, which is obviously goes completely against what we're saying here, which is that there is in fact an ancient British alphabet that can be found in Britain that's got its links going all the way back to, where do you believe it comes from?
So I believe the letters and the alphabets we get in Wales definitely come from at least Etruria, but I think it goes way back to the hieroglyphs, actually, to the Proto-Semitic script.
So you think it's developed from the hieroglyphs or simultaneously, or?
Possibly simultaneously, but I think actually the Proto-Semitic goes off in two different directions after that. With the Hebrews that are leaving Egypt, they've left and they've gone to Canaan on one side, and then the Phoenicians are developing an alphabet, and then you've also got a party, I think, that go to Anatolia, so where Troy would be, and the Latin alphabet start to develop from that period anyway, and then you've got the Phoenicians who give their stuff to the Greeks. So I think this is where the thing is, where the Britons giving their alphabets to the Greeks. Greeks have then got an alphabet which is developing, and then you've got an alphabet from the same root in Anatolia, and then that party from Anatolia, after the Trojan War, they go to Etruria and they settle in Etruria, and they develop that Etruscan script, which eventually with Brutus comes all the way to Britain. You've got the development of Greek script, which then the Greeks go over to Rome after Brutus leaves, and then the development of the Romans, of Rome and everything. You've got an updated version of the script. The script goes to Britain from Etruria, but then the Etruscan alphabet becomes updated by the more updated Grecian version. Then that's when we get the modern cursive Latin, if that makes sense.
Right.
So then you've got a more rudimental kind of runic script in Britain, which is what we see on the stones, intermixed with the later modern Latinate script.
Yeah, so you do see stones that have both on it, right? And that's because is it that the Latin doesn't have the sounds for the Welsh language, so they'd have to quickly switch back to the Coelbren to.
Oh, now this is a good, interesting conversation. There's many people who think that archaic Latin and archaic Welsh sounded very similar, actually. So I don't know. Is it actually?
I've talked about this random point before, actually, just saying
Yeah.
that if you read Welsh in an Italian accent, it just works.
Uh-huh.
Like it really does.
Yeah,
and it sounds it's sweet. It's quite nice.
I think there's a difference between Latin as we understand it today and Latin as it was spoken then. I think the Latin we've got today is a kind of judicial kind of language which is abstracted from normal people, and then you've got a language on the ground which I think was sort of the spoken word. But obviously, the translations that myself and Dad have done, Dad has discovered that there is a contractual relationship between Welsh and Latin, because we can translate the stones via Latin and then via Welsh. They extract similar meanings, just told differently.
So do you think the language has migrated to Britain, at least twice then? Because don't we have one migration of 1600 BC with Albine?
Yeah.
They believe it's to be Albine. So
Absolutely.
That Assyrian, they surely would have been pulling over some form of this early alphabet. Because I have heard Alan Hassel, he hypothesized actually that the modern English alphabet actually derived more from the Iceni tribe. What would you say to that? Or is that probably just a bit of a confusion?
Now, this area, I'm not going to pretend to know much about the English at this point, the English language at this point, but yeah, entirely possible. The Iceni being the Lograns, they're even in the origin myths, they're sort of described as a related party to the Welsh Britons, but they're not the same people. There is a difference there. You've got in the origin story Brutus, his son Locrine, who is the first king of England in the myth, and then you've got Cambr for Wales. So there's like a commonality but a difference.
And how do the Gutians tie into this? Are they descendants then of the Assyrians?
Gutians, who are they?
Well, they're the Giantes, or as they say them, because obviously Brutus was supposedly a giant killer, and when he got to Britain, he found the giants of Gog Magog. Alan Wilson said they were the Gutians, I think.
So are these the people descended from Albine, do you think?
It could be earlier migration patterns, couldn't it? If the Assyrians have conquered that area and then the Trojans have come in after.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we've got evidence of Phoenician traders really early on, way before Brutus came to the island. So yeah, no problem with that.
It's come from Egypt, and then we think it's gone to like Israel regions, where it's become essentially the language used there. And that explains why, for anyone that doesn't know, which most people probably will, because I bang on about it all the time, you can decode the Egyptian hieroglyphs with Welsh. And there's a book you can buy which has a dictionary at the back of a lot of the hieroglyphs already figured out. So you could just pick up this book. You don't even need to know Welsh yourself. You could just pick up this book, go to Egypt, find yourself a wall, and go and read what it says. So
have you done that, Luke?
I've not been to Egypt yet, but I've got the book. But yeah, so that link, I find that incredible, because it means that the language has not changed much in such a long time. Especially when the one that gets it for me is the little Welsh cake, the Tishan Lap.
Tishan, yeah, me too. I get the same thing gets me as well. Yeah.
Blows my mind, because there's an entire theory that people have put out. There's one person I've spoke to that says that the hieroglyphs were faked and all this. And I was sat there thinking, like, how would they have managed to get this like cake and all this back? I mean, Welsh, if you were going to do it, Welsh would be the one to go for, I guess, because no one would figure it out, would they? But anyway,
Oh,
so
brilliant.
we'll move on to where else has it been found, and that can connect as well to like Pelastian, and is it
Yeah.
Ration in Switzerland?
Yes. Yes.
So where should we start with that? You take us away.
I'm aware of the Ratian connection, which is great, really helpful, because it's not quite runic, is it? It's not quite, so it can really be, it's very close to the Coelbren, because the Coelbren and the runic have, they look very similar to the untrained eye. And obviously you've got the Lemnos Stela, haven't you?
Yes,
which has been translated by Wilson and Blackett via Coelbren.
yeah. And that's currently in Athens Museum if anyone wants to go see it. It's like, so it's not hidden. You can actually go and see that thing.
Yes, that's really, really great work. That the one I'm most qualified to talk about actually is the Rome foundation stone, which has been
Glad you brought this up.
translated by us. Because I think I'm speaking on behalf of my dad, really, who did the work on this, but he basically took Yolo at his word with the Coelbren, and used that cipher to decode the lapis niger stone, which is the Rome foundation stone, and he was able to extract from it a retelling of the Romulus and Remus story, which is the foundation story of Rome. So that can be used as a tool to do that. Then obviously there's a link.
Well, yeah, definitely, because they're considered mythical figures, really, aren't they? They're not historical by usual standards. So do you have that exact like translation to hand, or?
I don't have it to hand. I'm sorry, but
no, don't worry.
I'll see if I can get that for you. But yeah,
it's all right. But yeah, because that's something I've actually spoke about to people before, and then when they've been like, "Oh, cool, can you tell us more?" I've been like, "No." I just knew that it was on the foundation stone of Rome. So that's the Etruscan link, so obviously to Italy, and that's presumably that's done about just before the migration over, is it? The Romulus and Remus by Brutus.
Yeah.
Okay, because I've seen as well Alan Wilson bring up the fact that there's supposedly 2 Romes built at similar times, a wooden and a stone, but it seems like the stone actually was built first, weirdly. A lot of things about that. Do you know anything about that, or is that not your area?
About that. Not my area, but that sounds interesting. I'll have to look into that actually. Yeah.
All right. Sweet. So where else do we talk about? The Pelastian link?
I don't know too much about them. I don't think there's too much data on them, is there? But they definitely have that. They definitely have that alphabet in the area, which is I think of the time of the you've got the Lemnos stone, and there's not sure.
By this logic, though, we should be able to decode any Pelastian we find to a degree, shouldn't we? With the same thesis of kind of the Etruscan, and the link as well is Nineveh. In 1846, they dug up a load of I think it was like 25,000 clay tablets. And apparently they found Coelbren related texts on that.
I'm not entirely sure, but I know that the Nag Hammadi library has mention of, or does display the Coelbren alphabet, which it makes sense. I think there's an Essenian link to the Middle East from Britain at this time. Very much a highway of ecclesiastical correspondence between all of those areas. Yeah, I've been sent some of those tablets, some tablets written in Coelbren, which I haven't gotten around to deciphering yet. So it's an area I haven't really gone too much into yet. But I was just going to say my mission so far has been going like fine tooth combing Britain's stones in order to establish it here first, which I've been able to do to some degree. So it's a work in progress for me.
So I have as well all those sources you sent. Are there any of those that you'd want to bring up and have a look at or anything, or are they just for me to add on afterwards and bring up, or pre-Claudian British coin and stuff like that? I don't know. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if I guess if you're going to throw a photo up of it, that we can see this kind of it's just one example of this intermixture of Latinate and Coelbren script, because if you look at a graph of what the Latin alphabet was during that time, we've got a coin dated in 20 BC that was found in Kent, which is the southeast corner of England, which is where I currently am. So yeah, though this coin here is got, you know, a Latinate script on it, which you can see, and people will tell you, oh, well, that's because the commerce was beginning in the period, you know, 20 BC. But this is a British coin, minted in sovereign Britain before the Claudian invasion. And actually, if you look at this L here, just by the feet of the horse, you can see, you know, a Coelbren-esque L there, which, if you look at a graph of what the Latinate script was in this contemporary period, L's weren't written like that by the, you know, in Latin script. So this is a not only a cipher which is used by Yolo McGannog, it's one that isn't used in modern Latin script. So this is one example of the kind of thing I'm unpacking with a lot of the stones. There's loads of other examples of characters which just don't show up in Latin that do show up in Coelbren.
So this is 20 BC, do you say, or do you say pre-20 BC?
This is dated 20 BC, yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting as well with the crescent moons, because, you know, that's something we see the symbology, especially in the Byzantine kind of Ottoman empires, and Russia. Actually, Russia really adopted that crescent moon. Yeah,
fantastic.
You see it on top of a lot of the you know, the churches and stuff in Moscow. You know, and especially if you go to, yeah, it's cool. I think we definitely have a Scythian link. I know some people don't agree with that one, but I mean, we've had a lot of migrations of Scythians, haven't we? The Angles and Saxons actually come from Scythia, according to the oldest records. So they're not really German tribes. They're only German because they were there for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. The Scythians could be the tribe of Isaac. All right, so this is another example of a stone, 6th century. So you can understand, by, you know, the 6th century, the Romano-British commerce is, you know, truly well and done. But then we've still got all of these letters here which do not belong in modern Latin script, and which do belong in Yolo McGannog's Coelbren. So if you look at the bottom line there, from the P, if it goes, it's like a pro in there. Yeah, you got there. So that kind of, this kind of thing here, and you know, the letters around it from the line above. You know, these straight stroke ciphers are they don't belong in this period for Latin, but they do with British. And many people throughout the history have remarked on the curious intermixture of this cipher with Latin. It doesn't read in Latin. It's you know, it's clearly Welsh, but that's just one example of the stones. I've been able to extract about 3 of the ciphers I need to for Yolo from this stone. It's a pretty good one. Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's brilliant. Well, we will talk about your translations if you want to shortly. We'll just
great.
I want to bring up the America stuff. So apparently, for people that don't know, they migrated over after a cataclysm in about 560-570 AD. The Welsh took 700 ships over with King Arthur and his brother Madoc, and they sailed all the way to, I think it was Ohio where they arrived, or it might have been Alabama, actually. I know there's they've got a monument to him. I think it is Alabama, where they supposedly landed Madoc the first time, although they attribute it to being 1170 AD incorrectly, don't they? There's a lot of stuff to do with that. We've found over there, we've got a Braxton County stone found in West Virginia, and a Grave Creek tablet, which I will bring up images of for people to see. Can you talk about these? Would you be able to speak about those looking at them?
The tablets? Yeah, absolutely. If I could see. Yeah, we've got our typical Coelbren straight stroke cipher there, which another source I'll show you in a moment is the Nennius script, which I sent you as well. But I don't think that Coelbren is an exactly standardized form of writing. In certain areas, I think it really has variation. This arrangement of stroke ciphers resembles more Coelbren than it does with runic, for example, because I know there's a big narrative about Vikings making it to America, which I don't doubt, because they were seafaring people as well as the Britons, but it's just the Britons that never get the look in on any of this. But I think the biggest giveaway for this being British is the cross down here, because we it's the kind of thing we find on British stones all the time.
You mean this big thing
here?
Yeah,
this down here, this cross down here.
Yeah. So do you know what this says, or would it take a bit to decode that?
Well,
do you need your ciphers?
I would need my ciphers. Yeah, I'm not that fluent with it yet, but
so the ciphers that they used to have, that was like an actual little device that they'd hold, is it? And like that'd help them decode these things. I've seen images of these,
like an abacus.
Yes, that's the images that I've seen of these ciphers. I didn't know if that was just
I think where we've got this kind of idea that and this is partly maybe why we don't have solid uninterrupted sort of evidence for it, is that this was used as a method of writing on sticks, which carved into sticks, which some historians have argued was used during the time of Owen Glendower and his rebellion. There was a big Coelbren revival in order to have a sort of covert language. So I think this thing of the ciphers being on wood is totally I don't know. On the other hand, I think the bardic mind is very keen on kind of not an intuition, but a memory, and retaining things without the need. I must be a bad bard if I can't remember my ciphers, but you get what I mean.
Yeah. I suppose it's kind of like a little version of a mind palace, isn't it? Yes. Twisting, it's symbols on each, and your little mind abacus.
Yeah, absolutely. Like my mate who comes on my show says, Peter, he says it's like a mnemonic, which is it serves to jog a memory, to kind of to display something from the unconscious mind almost.
So I'm going to bring up that Lemnos stele that we talked about again.
Yeah.
Is it this one?
Yes, the one. Yeah. This is the one.
Where did it disappear to? There it is.
There we go.
Excellent. Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, great. I think it's great to look at this because the direction of the writing it's not left to right, it's right to left. So when did that change, and why did it change? The thing is we can read it with the Coelbren cipher, but it's reversed.
Yeah.
Not sure as to why that is. There's different ideas. Might be because when they migrated, they went from sort of west, to east to west. But these ciphers are they're very much represented by Yolo as well. I know it's been translated by Wilson and Blackett to give a narrative for Brutus, wasn't it? But
yes.
Other than that, I don't know too much other about it.
I think what he claims is it talks about the migration route from Egypt as well, doesn't it? It says that the people were in a place. Says the people were in a place where they were happy, but then they were taken away, and that was being taken to Egypt, and then they found a place where they were okay, but then they got moved again, and something about they were following a little cart. It seems to mention that's his connection anyway to it being like the Ark of the Covenant story of them following Moses with the Ark of the Covenant back to Israel. And then he says that obviously they took it with them to eventually onto Troy, and then would have taken it with them even further with the Trojans back to Britain. So
yes, they say it's in Tywyn y Glor, don't they, in Wales, in a man.
Yeah. But yeah, so where's the next connection that we should talk about? So we've talked about it being in America. We've talked about it being in Greece. So this is the Lemnos stele. The foundation stone, is there an image of that, or?
I didn't send you one, I don't think, but it's the lapis niger stone is the official name.
Is this the one? Yeah,
that's the one. If you scroll down, there we go. it looks the script obviously looking extremely like the previous stone we were just looking at. So it's we've got our migration, but
so this is the foundation stone. This is the bottom stone. Like when they first
yes,
put a stone down, like we're going to build a city here.
the lowest. It's at the lowest where the first point. So yeah, it's been called. It's been called the foundation stone, certainly.
And this relays the story of Romulus and Remus.
Yes, if you extract it.
And what is that story for us? Remind us.
So Romulus, two brothers who were suckled by a wolf. They were out living in the wild, and they were on a mission to find a home. And they end up fighting. The two brothers that end up fighting, and Romulus is the successor, which is why Rome is called Rome. If that's a very basic retelling of the story, but that's what I've got. There we go.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And while we're on stories, because they do love their stories, the story of Brutus is rather tragic, isn't it? So Brutus, who started Britain, he supposedly his mother died in childbirth, so they were already like, oh, he's cursed. And then he apparently killed his father accidentally while they were out hunting. He shot him with an arrow. So his village said, "You have killed both your parents. You must now get out." I'm sure he was like, "Come on, I've only killed one."
Like, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Literally, like, go away. Why am I getting this double whammy? But that was apparently prophesied that he'd do that.
Really?
It was prophesied by a magician that they said, yeah, he's going to kill his father, and that's it. And it was a hunting accident. He killed his dad.
You'd think his dad would be on guard, wouldn't he? Whenever he's holding anything sharp, just like, oh, no, keep that out of your hands.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with a prophecy like that, lethal.
Yeah. So and then he's the guy. So he left. Is that when he leaves Rome? Is it? And he
leaves. He's exiled, and he basically takes a party with him. And sails around trying to find a new home. He ends up finding a group of imprisoned Trojans who are under the capture of King Pandrasus, the Greek king, who had been there for 150 years in captivity after the Trojan War. And he basically goes there and convinces them to rise up and defeat Pandrasus. And then Pandrasus, submits. He offers Brutus his daughter Imogen in marriage, and then they sail to Gaul. They sail to where is it in France? Can't remember the name. Name escapes me. But he goes to France. They fight a Gaulish tribe under the name of a king called Gothrius Pictus. They have success there before moving on to Britain. That's the official story, but it might be the case that he stopped off in Iberia as well, because we find this.
I've heard this, I've heard the Iberian link.
We find this exact alphabet in Iberia, as well as many other British style settlements as well. So there could be an ongoing relationship between Britain and that part of Spain. But Brutus, he's in Gaul, and then he sails over to Britain. By the way, he's been sent on this mission by the goddess Diana, who tells him that Britain is yours. You've just got to kill the giants, as Lucas said earlier. Could be the Giantes. He rids Britain of the giants. This links in nicely with the Gog Magog stuff, doesn't it, as well?
Yeah. He picks up Cornelius, doesn't he?
Cornelius, yeah, absolutely, yeah. He isn't he the one they had. He was the last one left, and they were using him for entertainment or something like that. But if my memory serves, but yeah, after that, he establishes himself as king of Britain, and then partitions England, Scotland, and Wales, and gives it to his three sons. The different territories through three sons. Locrine, which is why we get the Loegrians, Camber for Wales, and Albanicatus for Scotland.
And then, of course, we have the Gog Magog link, which I've talked about in my Gog Magog video. Is there's the talk between this battle between, I think it is Cornelius, isn't it? and
Yes.
the giant, Gog of Magog, they've been conflated as two separate giants, but they had these statues. They've had them rebuilt, but they're not as good. We had these old statues standing there for forever, basically saying this is how our city was founded. There was a battle, a wrestling match. They kept the last giant, Gog Magog, to have a wrestling match on top of a hill, and apparently he broke 3 ribs of Cornelius, and then Cornelius threw him down the hill, and he died. So they keep that statue up, and then of course London was originally known as New Troy at one point, wasn't it?
New Troy, Trinovantum. Yeah, absolutely. They've got evidence of a very early settlement there, which is great. I love to see that. And the New Troy thing is actually something which pops up again with the Tudors, which becomes very popular again. You see old maps, and it's called New Troy again, which is something I've delved into a little bit as well.
I would love to bring up some of those maps. I'll have to go and hunt for that when I'm editing.
I'll send you some. That it was actually
That's brilliant.
My professor that gave me some of them. So the Brutus story became really popular again with the Tudors. It became popular in that it was used by them, but then it was simultaneously discredited by a papal agent, which I go into quite a lot in my dissertation. It's quite a interesting power move there. But,
right.
I think the church wanted this story absolutely squashed on one level, but allowing the Tudors to fashion it for their own claims.
Well, that actually will fit perfectly then into the next banner. Because that's what I want to talk about. Why has it been hidden?
Yeah.
So let's talk about this in your papal agents.
British history, the traditional understanding of British history, i.e., Brutus of Troy, etc., Joseph of Arimathea, Jesus in Britain, all of these narratives, they were no problem for the establishment, I don't think, until some Norman kings actually start to find them troublesome. I think the Normans beginning with Henry II, he wanted to equip this narrative as much as he could. He actually went to Glastonbury and proclaimed that he had found King Arthur in an abbey ruins after a fire, and he was really aligning himself with the British narrative at that time. At that point he'd killed Thomas of Becket, so he was looking to really give his reputation a boost. But then I think it's 100 years on, Edward I, who is trying to subdue the Welsh. He's working with a guy called Archbishop Peckham, who is obviously aware of the significance of this narrative for the sovereignty of Britain, and he's trying to actually suppress this Welsh narrative. And I think Edward I said we need to wean the Welsh off their Trojan fantasies. So this becomes a problem. This narrative becomes a problem for the establishment, the monarchical establishment, which is backed by the church. Becomes a problem for them then, and it remains a problem and remains quite quiet until Henry VII becomes king. And because he's Welsh, he needs to work with what he's got, and he's a Welsh royal, but he's not the most senior Welsh royal line. So I think what has happened is that they've buried. They actively attempted to bury a lot of this history in order to make sure that any other pretenders to the throne who are more senior Welsh royals than the Tudors, they wouldn't have. They've been, with the story being discredited, they're not going to have as much of a chance. But they actually simultaneously and subtly, well, not so subtly, but they definitely wielded it for themselves as well. The Arthur thing. Henry called his first son Arthur. The Brutus thing becomes very much part of their royal character again, and then towards the 17th century, it actually really leaks into sort of more broad culture more broadly. So we've got Shakespeare writing plays about Locrinus. We've got London being called New Troy again. There's a real resurgence of this Trojan narrative, which is quite popular then after the Tudors and after the Stuarts. We get the Hanoverians, who are, we go back, when we get to the English Civil War and we get to the City of London and wanting to put a puppet monarchy in and things like that, this history becomes a problem again for the establishment, because what it does is it really threatens the established sort of power group, who gets to wield the power in Britain, basically. Sir Edward Coke also states that the rightful king of Britain has to descend from Brutus legally, and he wrote that in early 1600s. So, and that's still law.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, no way. I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
that's excellent.
Yeah.
So, like you say, it's definitely still part of society. It's just for some reason been brushed under the carpet of mythology.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of accepted when it's wanted to be, but then it's just kind of laughed at in any kind of serious debate. So how have you found doing your dissertation on this subject, considering it's been such a hard topic to research in the first place, I guess?
Well, actually, I think you can make the argument that, because you can argue that Celtic culture was heavily influenced by the Etruscans, and that the Roman origin narrative is the same. They claim to be descended from Troy. Nobody has a problem with that. And because that early culture has influenced British culture, because we've got evidence of chariots and things like that in Britain, and this alphabet, I think I made the argument, and it was totally accepted. Totally accepted that.
Wow.
I made the argument. It's absolutely fine to say what you need to say, and substantiate it. And also, I think what I did in the dissertation was really challenge the mainstream notion of the Brutus narrative being something invented by Geoffrey of Monmouth in 12th century, because it's not it's not hidden that he was given a book by Bishop, what's his name, I can't remember. He was given a book by a bishop, and he said, you need to translate this into English for me, Latin into English. And there's evidence of so basically we've got this story of Geoffrey of Monmouth, he might have been given a book. It's a bit of a mystery. It's kind of not really, like, nobody's really happy as saying it as that's a fact. But actually there is a colophon on the Bruticilio, which is a 7th century document, which is the sort of starting point of Welsh literature, that has the same story. I don't know if you've ever seen the Bruticilio, but it has the story of Brutus coming here. It has British Jerusalem. It has Jesus being in Britain. All of these things, and it's and in the inception of Welsh writing. So it's not something that was invented by Geoffrey of Monmouth. I can prove that it's at least 600 years older than that, which is the start of writing. So how old are these stories through the oral tradition? So I've made that argument as well. I've gone that route as well with it.
Well, you've done an excellent job, man, because you really can't disprove it when you say things like that.
No, absolutely.
I mean, so yeah, we'll come to that. Talking of that, you mentioned it at the beginning when we were first coming into the intro, but Yolo Edwards. So this here is the big issue of what this is all about at the moment, which is Yolo Edwards is slammed as being a forger, as being a drug addict. I think they probably said a thief, all sorts of things, plagiarizer. And he supposedly invented this bardic script in the 1800s. And that is the official line still right now. If you go on Wikipedia, that is what they're going to tell you. And obviously, when you look at all this, you can clearly see that it's not a forgery. There is something that goes much further back. And I think, was it that he based it on Llewellyn Sion's ciphers, or am I wrong on that?
No, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
So they were from 1503, I think.
1503. And there's another manuscript from Ian Llawdden as well, 1415, which is, like I said, that's the period of Owen Glyndŵr. So it just shows, it was being thought about then as well. He took the ciphers from from these people. I think he claimed he said that he took it from Llewellyn, which, you know, it predates Yolo, doesn't it? So he can't have invented
Yeah.
it. He can't have invented it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And as well, I've seen when I was reading through this book, I noticed they mentioned that people were talking about Coelbren. I want to say 1796 was one of the earliest dates mentioned that they were, you know, people themselves were writing books about Coelbren, you know, in the early 1800s, and for some reason they've all been ignored, and it's just been Yolo Edwards. Because I mean, I'm not sure exactly what the date was that they say that he was he faked this, and I just know it's 1800s, but. So
Absolutely.
yeah, he was so he's dead by 1826. So yeah, 1800s. So and like you say, if you come here, they'll tell you he's, you know, he forged it. He's a forger. I was watching a video recently on YouTube. I didn't even mean to watch it. You know, YouTube likes to push you to random videos without you actually asking for it. It pushed me to this guy talking at one of the universities about Yolo Edwards and saying how it was basically about 45 minutes of just slandering Yolo Edwards as a forger. And I found that really interesting that got pushed to me based on my algorithm, like, you know, viewing Britain's hidden history and Coelbren and stuff like that.
That's fascinating. Yeah. They should do that. The smear campaign on him it's not standing on very strong legs anymore, I'm afraid. It's like everything that they say against him, you can easily argue against. You know, call him a drug addict. Well, he was on Lord. Everyone was on laudanum back then for cough. You know, he had a bad cough. He was unwell. That's not. I know it's an opiate, but this is the 18th century. Everyone was on something. You know.
Yeah, I know, right? Britain was literally invading China twice to force them into taking this, and people are going, "Oh, this guy was doing drugs."
Right, exactly. He gets blamed with inventing manuscripts. He went round knocking on the doors of all these aristocrats trying to get all these manuscripts, and they're not going to want to just part with them. Some guy knocks on your door and says, "Oh yeah, I'm a historian. I want your manuscript." And they're going to go, no, they're going to offer you a cup of tea and allow you to just come in, make a copy. And that's what happened. You know, he didn't make them up. I think it's just such a disingenuous smear campaign. But it was something that was done by I think his name is Griffith J. Williams, who was he was a Anglican. He was Oxford man. So he's of the establishment. He's of the orthodoxy at the time. This Yolo McGanag was bringing up stuff from the past which challenges the religious orthodoxy, the historical orthodoxy. Griffith J. Williams is a man of the establishment. You get it a lot in Wales, where they like to damn their own countrymen in order to step up the ladder in England, like socially. So I think that's what went on there. It stinks. The whole smear campaign. It's not very credible.
Some people that suggest that the reason it's hidden is to hide that link between Cymric and the tribes of Israel. You know, that it is something as deep as the religious element. What do you think to that?
No, I'm totally on that bandwagon. No problem. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can go that far with it. It's the Coelbren, as I hope I've explained when I was trying to explain the differences with the alphabets. It's an alphabet in a more of a pure form than Latin was. In all these alphabets come from Proto-Sinaitic, but the one that is probably closest to the Proto-Sinaitic in its sort of descent is the Coelbren. So
yeah,
and obviously when you see that Mediterranean alphabet on stones in Britain, you're going to really ask questions. So yeah, it makes total sense to me.
And then obviously we've got the historical narrative that follows that Britain essentially was uninhabited, but was inhabited, was simultaneously had a massive navy and had nothing. You know, it's kind of this Schrodinger's history, isn't it, that we've got in Britain?
Yeah, and Julius, sorry to jump in, but Julius Caesar saying on one hand that Wales or Britain was the University of Western Europe, and yet there were you know, living in mud huts as well, and they're all stupid. So
Yeah,
you get
exactly.
this real dissonance, real disconnect, and it's like.
And there's I can't remember if this was Strabo or one of them said that, you know, the Brit comes dressed not like a Scythian, you know, he comes actually well clad, he has a bow in hand, he's very polite. Yeah, and it's incredible, isn't it? You've got this kind of antithesis in descriptions. On the one hand, like you say, they were a nation that were there since, well, 1600 BC at least, but we know that they've got dolmens dating back to 3000 BC. We like to act like these people were primitive, yet they were still figuring out how to move rocks that today, you or I, if we were just dropped in the middle of a forest and someone said, do us a favor, mate, make a dolmen, we'd have no chance, you know. And even with a team of men, we'd struggle. With a team of, you know, a massive team, we'd be like, this is a hard job. And these people went around doing it all over. So it shows that there must have been lots and lots of people.
Real evidence of huge industry in the southwest of Britain for tin mining. And this is another point I like to stress with the link between Rome and Britain, is that when Claudius did come to Britain and defeated the Britons and captured Caradoc, they didn't kill him like they killed Vercingetorix, their neighbor. They were like, hang on, these people.
One sec, I'll just pause you. I think is there a dog in the background? It's just going.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. One more. Come here. Come here. Another point that I like to stress with the connection between Britain and Rome is the house arrest of Caradoc and his family when Claudius defeated the Britons. You know, usually the Romans they just chop the head off the leader, but they didn't do that with Caradoc. They brought him into the bosom of the Roman court. He gave a speech, which I don't think is noted anywhere that there was a translator, which is an important point. They could have been speaking a very similar language in Rome and in Britain. They probably are meeting kinsmen, to be honest. You know, people might say that Caradoc might have been really well educated. That's a good point. But actually, I think when you give an inspiring speech, which really encapsulates the attention of everybody, and it means that you're not killed and you're spared and you're kept on house arrest, I think you're probably speaking a language which is the same, to be honest. And obviously that's a really important point for the introduction of Christianity into Rome as well.
Is his son Linus, isn't it?
That's it. It's his son Linus.
So he becomes the first bishop of Rome. So yeah, if you want to talk about that, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously in Britain, the Druids, the holy men, had no problem converting to Christianity, seeing as Christ was essentially their former student. And Britain was the world's first Christian country, and basically the Romans had an appetite at that point in the elite circles for something new. And then when Caradoc and his family went to Rome, that appetite was satiated by this new religion about this Christ who'd been put on the cross, who they all know about. So it's this kind of new movement, which was very enigmatic to them, obviously. And Linus, who is the son of Caradoc, becomes the first bishop of Rome, which is something seldom spoken about, really, is it?
No, definitely not. I mean, it's something I like to bring up to people, but again, it shatters this whole idea of, you know, starting in Rome with Papal coming over, you know. I mean, yeah, it's incredible. I mean, the amount of people that have no idea about it. My granny is a very religious person, and when I told her that, she was like, "Really?" So yeah, you know, so it all began here. And interesting, you bring up Caradoc. Is he the one that's buried at Mina de Gaia? Is that pretty certain?
There's many Caradocs. I don't know. There is a Cair Caradoc somewhere, isn't there? But I don't know where.
Yeah, because we've got a Cair Caradoc that actually climbed up a few months ago. The one in Shropshire, just like south of Wroxeter, because we went up to see the, you know, Cair. Well, what Alan Wilson has suggested could be the original Cair Efrog, which is Wroxeter Roman, Roman city there. Yeah, which is quite cool because apparently they called it Uriconium as well, which I think it sounds a bit like Jericho, Jericho, you know, because they apparently were called Jericho. Yeah, so who knows? Maybe that was that. Yeah, because we were investigating just how basically they've gone there and they've rebuilt everything to look Roman as possible, but it's not Roman at all. It's clearly ancient British. But yeah, I think there's a cairn called or named for Caradoc at Minidagaya, which is where St. Peter's Church is, the one that Alan Wilson bought. So anyway, yeah, where should we move on to next after that?
I think the only thing we haven't covered, which I've noted down, is the mention of Coelbren in this document during the English Civil War, which is a very important document. The alphabet, which he notes was the Druidic alphabet of Britain, was he said brought here by the Phoenicians. Now, I'd love to know where he got that information from, because I don't know the strong sources we've got for it being Julius Caesar and being Ammianus Marcellus. They say that it came from the Greeks, which I know that the Phoenician alphabet came here, but it said the Phoenicians took their alphabet to there. So this links in with the sort of the early migrations. Anyway, what I'm saying is that this information was really available during the English Civil War and was really enigmatic and powerful and politically influential as well. A lot of what I talk about in the dissertation with this is that actually this document, which set out to outline Greek, Phoenician, Trojan relics amongst the Britons, was used to trying to fashion this new British identity, post-monarchical identity, because they see this ancient British history as being something which is oppressed by the monarchy and the Catholic Church. And obviously these parliamentarian Protestants are really keen on emphasizing what things were like before then. There was information available at that time in the 17th century to suggest that this alphabet came here via the Phoenicians, which didn't come from a Roman source. So that's interesting to me as well. What have we lost?
So I suppose the Phoenicians, they could be very easily conflated with the original 1600 migration of the Assyrians, because that's so close.
Easily.
I was just going to bring up the boats that they found. Was it in Newport Bay, the submerged harbour? And they found boats, and they claimed them to actually, I think, be Egyptian at one point. They were saying it could be Viking, could be Egyptian. Wow. I think the more that I search this stuff, it's just a merry-go-round. It literally is. People are just coming from here and then going over there and then coming back from here, and we're going, oh, new people. It's like, no, they're just you from like 500 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a kind of intergenerational battle going on, or remembrance of certain different tribes. This thing to do with like for example, I talk a lot about the English Civil War, Reformation, the battle between Rome and Britain. That's been going on for a long time. It's not just something isolated to Protestants in after the Tudor period. No, it's kind of written into the matrix, if you will. There's these a bit like Romulus and Remus, two brothers fighting it out.
Yeah. Well, what's really interesting as well is that I find that there's almost a European divide, because down the middle, because you have we call a lot of it, like you say, Germanic tribes, and then you've got like Scandinavians in terms of like Vikings and stuff like that. I mean, even Normans are just Northmen, coming from these same regions. And once you go back to where all these migrations come from, the amount that come from the same place, I think it's something like, the Huns, the Goths, Visigoths, Vandals, Suaves, Alans, Jutes, Saxons, Angles, Danes, Frisians. All of these people all come from the same place, and they're just migrating slowly over and over and over and over. And yet we differentiate them. We say these are Germanic people, but they didn't. The Angles and Saxons literally came from Russia, or like as the Huns chased them. You know what I mean? The Huns are coming in and they're hot on the heels, and there's Angles and Saxons. But at the same time, they have that familial link, the same kind of, they'll have that ability to communicate that you talk about with like the Etruscans and Caradoc, or Romans and Caradoc, when they come over because of that link. And in that essence, it does feel that there's almost like there's like a North and a South Europe, if you know what I mean. And
yes, I do.
Yeah, and they're coming in with Germany, because they finally do end up taking Rome, don't they? And Germany kind of becomes the seat of the Holy Roman Empire. And that's kind of where you get this Russian mix. You could almost say the Russian Holy Empire. Like it's quite incredible, really.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think the whole thing with the like Charlemagne and the Franks and everything, they really like claim that Trojan origin, and they claim the Holy Bloodline as well. I know there's some people out there who disagree with that. You know, this is the kind of thing you find in Holy Blood and the Holy Grail, isn't it?
Yes.
That sort of thing. Alan Wilson, I think Alan Wilson would say that it's a smear campaign, distract from the truth of it. But yeah, I think these myths, these origin myths, are pan-European.
Sorry, I was just going to say that just before we move on to that is bringing that up. He says about that Holy Blood and the Holy Grail, the people in south of France were actually the Cathars, which are Khazars, which are come again from the same region as the Huns. Yeah, Khazars.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're just Khazars that have come over in the 8th century. So the Huns have come over before them, and then the Khazars have followed. And if you follow that line as well, it's really interesting. The first Khazar, or not the first, but one of the Khazar princes, he became Godfrey of Bouillon, who is the guy that went on to become, king of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
So that was, if you think about it, that's actually a Khazar conquering of Jerusalem in the name of the Khazars, who are also the Khazars of the Cossacks of of Crimea. They're the Khazars, same people. So
yeah, fascinating.
I mean, the link there, especially because that the Greeks had that empire that was included a lot of that Bosphorus area, includes the Crimean. They had control of the Crimean Peninsula, created cities there, and then apparently the Tartars move in, which is how Tartaria connects to it all. It's really such a vast topic.
It just gets bigger and bigger.
Did you mention you wanted to talk about the Nennius script, or was that?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to show it just to.
I can bring it up one sec before we end, and I can put it in somewhere else if necessary.
Yeah, sweet.
But here's the script. Can you see that? And I can scroll for you.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about this quickly because obviously we can see here that Nennius, who was a Welsh historian, who really wanted, I think he was really disheartened by his people's forgetfulness about who they were. He really wanted to help the Welsh remember who they were. We got this theme again of the Welsh kind of remembering who they were and then forgetting again. And Nennius was really trying to help, hone that point. So what we've got here is a script which definitely looks of that Paleo-Hebraic sort of Mediterranean stock, and we've got an Awen here. We've got many of the ciphers in Yolo's Coelbren. We've got a few Phoenician letters in there. Some of them don't look exactly the same, but then when you take, so there's look, if you hover around, see the bottom line, the second from the left, there's this kind of there's a letter in there which is recognizably a Coelbren R, but it's got this little squiggle over the top of it. But if you take it off, you see the Coelbren R. So you get what I'm saying. There's this kind of remembrance of this Welsh script which happened 1,000 years before Yolo Magannog. Do you see what I mean? This is a topic which has been going on for a long time, and I it's just unfortunate we haven't got any stones, but we've got pieces. I think this is a really interesting document. Another thing I wanted to add, that on this website, I think there's a professor who says that, they got influence. It's a forgery. They must have had influence from Ireland or England. And this is something you hear a lot about the stones in Wales, which they're said to be inspired by Irish, or they were developed by Irish monks who came over. But it's like none of the stones in Ireland have the same script. It's something you only get in Britain. So how can it be that it was an import? It's the same old story. The Britons couldn't make anything, but it's rubbish. This is letters from this are from this script are part of the intermixture that you do find on those stones in Wales. So, and only in Britain. So it to me says that there was a British script. Yolo wasn't lying. Basically, that's all I wanted to say.
And briefly, briefly before we end, you mentioned the Awen, and I realized we didn't even speak about that. So could you quickly tell us about the Awen? Because I feel like that is actually quite important.
Definitely. Right. So the Awen. So it's a symbol which was very popular in the Druidic reboot after Yolo. It represents divine inspiration, and it shows that religious syncretism between Druidism and Christianity, which is something like sun worship, where they had their beams of light coming down from above. So that's kind of divine inspiration coming from God. As you can see, on the it's been said as something that's a neo-Druidic, neo-pagan, but like I've shown you in that previous source, the Nennius script, it was something that they knew about in the 9th century. So it's very, very old, very ancient. We find Awens on stones in Britain, which are older than that. So it's it's there to represent. It's to represent God, I think.
And now it's called the broad arrow, right?
Broad arrow, yeah. Or they're also used by the British government as benchmarks as well. So it's something that was appropriate.
I've seen them on the top of the ordnance survey markers. I've seen them placed as well.
Yeah. The one on the Druidic revival has got three. It's a three stroke symbol, and there's three dots at the top there, and that could be interpreted as representing the Trinity or God as a three entity being, basically, or something like that. I think as well, something which disseminates holy information from above, and it's kind of meant to be understood as what is happening to you when you're getting poetic inspiration, which is very much in the bardic tradition. So something divine, moving you divinely. Yeah, precisely.
And Alan Wilson calls it the secret name of God.
Secret name of God.
Yeah. So that's a little nod to people when they put that down. They're saying, like, I know the secret name.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, thank you for explaining all this, man. I hope everyone that's watched has learned a lot about Coelbren, about the history. You know that it's not a forgery anymore, because that is one of the biggest claims made, isn't it? And if you go on Wikipedia, you're going to be told that, and you're going to walk away thinking, well, that's that. And unfortunately, if you search Coelbren on YouTube, you really don't get many results at all. Your video is one of them. My interview with Marshall is one of them. And, you really don't get much. So I'm really glad we've done this, because this has gone right down to the basics, where it's from. You're the expert, and you've, I spoke to Marshall months ago, and she said that I should talk to you and your dad about this.
Yeah.
So I'll have to get your dad on the next episode.
Absolutely. I'd love to get dad on. I think, I really, really appreciate and love, that appreciation there. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in Coelbren, but what it is that I think we've unlocked a few things with the writing system, which is incorporative of the Coelbren alphabet, but it's a Druidic bardic system which includes not just Coelbren but Latin as well. I've got videos on that on my channel as well if you want to have a look, Luke, and anyone else.
Yeah, well, everyone should check out there. Go and subscribe to Adam, because we're essentially here possibly talking about the Proto-European language. That this could be the language that, if you talk about Babylon, this seems to be the one that was connecting all of Europe. And if it's moved around the Mediterranean like that, then apparently at some point in history, you'd have been able to just hop on a boat from somewhere near, Gaul, and sail across to Troy and be able to communicate with everyone in between, which is quite ludicrous compared to today. I can jump over the border and I can't communicate with people in Wales, So I guess that prophecy's been fulfilled, hasn't it? We've all been split up and given different languages.
That prophecy has been fulfilled indeed. Yes, indeed. I think Welsh might be quite a special language. Looking through this, we'll talk about the hieroglyphs at some point as well. I've done a few translations myself just to pressure test it. I did the cartouche of Ramesses III using hieroglyphs, and the phonetics were absolutely there. I got his name from the cartouche, and it also, what is great about and this is why Welsh is a bardic language, and this is why the Assyrian root, you know, this language has a double meaning to it. You have the superficial meaning and the sound and the phonetic, and then there's underneath there's a narrative to be unpicked. And it's the same with, you know, if you were to decipher your name, Luke, with hieroglyphs, you get. I've done it for myself. You find a very accurate description of your being, if you will, with spirit in the name. It's very interesting stuff. So yeah, got the and it's the same with the Coelbren stuff as well. You get one meaning and then you get another meaning and you get another meaning. It's incredible, and they all link up.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, hieroglyphs is definitely something we're gonna have to do an episode on. I think if you're happy to do a whole talk on hieroglyphs, then we could do it, and I could see some of those translations, because it is such a claim, isn't it, to sit here and say that hieroglyphs can be decoded with Welsh, but once people see it, they'll realize like, oh, but it's still, like we were saying, it still blows my mind to think that the Egyptians were using a cake thousands of years ago that is still baked in Wales today. I was my friend was eating one at the weekend when we were there. He said, oh, by the way, this is one of them. He said, my grandma used to make these. And you think, wow, like that's either an incredible coincidence, but then it can't be a coincidence when you mix all the other things in together, you know, all the other words matching. It'd be impossible. There has to be a base language there that's connecting modern Welsh and the hieroglyphs as we see them written on the walls, which is incredible. But anyway, let's leave it there before we go into another, because I could do another hour talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, so thank you very much for coming. Everyone go over to The Great Griff on YouTube and Instagram. Give him as much love as you can. Follow him. He's got all this information and much more, because, you know, I can only ask you so many questions, but you're the guy with the knowledge. And yeah, he's written an entire dissertation on this, so he's actually going to be making this mainstream very soon. Expect in the next few years to be seeing a book by Adam Griffith on the shelves, which completely changes how we view language in Europe. So I can't wait to see that. And thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you very much. Been a pleasure.